Hi, I'm Mercy, and I'm currently doing a student journalism internship at BizKeys. This podcast is going to focus on the experience of Tamil women and children in post-Civil War Sri Lanka and give some backstory to the conflict. I decided to pursue this area of research and narrow down my focus to women and children after reading many articles about the post-conflict situation where there was hardly any mention of the female or the child experience. Refugees are not a homogenized group. Their experiences vary greatly, and it's important to carve out the space to talk about the voices which are often marginalized. So, to begin, let's go back a bit in the history of Sri Lanka to understand where some of the tension started. When Britain left Sri Lanka, then Ceylon, in 1948, they left behind a deeply divided society with two major ethnic groups. There were the Sinhalese. These formed the majority of the population and were predominantly Buddhist. Then there were the Tamils, the minority group. They were primarily Hindu, with a smaller number of Christians. The period up until the Civil War was plagued with tensions that escalated to very dark and violent oppressions at times. Key events and persecutions facing the Tamils included citizenship of 1948. This stripped Indian Tamils of citizenship, rendering nearly 1 million plantation workers stateless. The Sinhala Only Act of 1956 declared Sinhala the sole official language, marginalizing Tamils in education, employment, and public life. Standardization politics of 1971 instituted ethnic quotas for university admissions, disproportionately affecting Tamil students. These discriminatory policies sowed resentment among the Tamil population, who had been relatively privileged under the British colonial rule due to their education. The period of the 1970s to 1983 then saw an escalation of tension and the formation of Tamil militancy. The earlier movements were largely peaceful. The Federal Party advocated for Tamil autonomy. The Tamil United Liberation Front formally called for a separate Tamil state in 1976. However, the repression of peaceful Tamil movements by the Sinhalese-dominated government led to the emergence of militant groups. The Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, known as the LTTE, was founded and sought an independent Tamil state. LTTE tactics differed from before and included targeted assassinations, where the LTTE killed Tamil politicians they considered collaborators with key Sinhalese leaders. There was guerrilla warfare. They expelled Sinhalese and Muslim populations from Tamil majority areas in the north and the east. They earned international recognition as a formidable terrorist organization. A key catalyst event that triggered the Civil War is known as Black July in 1983. Anti-Tamil pogroms erupted after the LTTE ambushed a military convoy, killing 13 soldiers. Thousands of Tamils were massacred. Businesses and homes were looted and destroyed. Many fled to India and to the west. The civil war between Sri Lankan government and the LTTE lasted nearly 3 decades. It was characterized by brutal violence, mass displacement, and significant loss of life. The conflict is rich with detail and nuance. It's important to remember that. But there are some key events I'm going to mention to try and fill in the blanks a bit more of the Civil War. So, the 1987 Indian peacekeeping intervention backfired and faced resistance from both the LTTE and the Sinhalese population. The LTT then assassinated the Indian Prime Minister in 1991 and the Sri Lankan President in 1993. In the 2000s, there's a notable tide that turned against the LTTE. The post-2002 ceasefire collapsed, leading to renewed violence. The Sri Lankan military launched a massive offensive in 2006. Sri Lankan forces retook LTTE-controlled areas, including the Jaffna Peninsula and the Eastern Province. Then, in 2009, the war reached its end as the Sri Lankan army defeated the LTTE. Over 40,000 Tamil civilians were killed in the final months due to indiscriminate shelling and restricted humanitarian aid. The civil war led to mass displacement. Hundreds of thousands became refugees or internally displaced persons. The refugee camps, both in Sri Lanka and abroad, remained after the civil war. People were unable to return to their home for numerous reasons, including widespread mining, which in the northern and eastern provinces, where much of the war was fought, had to be demined before it was declared safe and before people could return home. Also, there was mass military occupation of land, where large swathes of land remained under military control and were classified as high security zones. Many areas were also restricted due to road damage, which hindered transportation and also restricted essential services like clean water, like electricity. The numbers of the displacement really do speak for themselves. There were 300,000 internally displaced refugees in Sri Lanka and 100,000 in India. People's lives were uprooted, destabilized, and often became very dangerous. While one can never fully capture the experience of a refugee, with words and images simply failing to cover the depth and the complexity of the trauma, the human needs lens is a useful start in allowing us to understand some of the challenges they face. The 7 human needs are as follows. First one being safety, security, and survival. Second one, understanding. Third one, connection and acceptance. Fourth one, contribution and participation. The fifth one, esteem and identity. The sixth one, self-determination. And the seventh one, self-actualization. What strikes me the most about these human needs lens is how integrated each of the pillars are, and how often we neglect to recognize the importance of understanding connection and identity as fundamental human values that we need to live by. I would suggest that safety, security, and survival is most visibly under threat in the refugee camps for women and children, and I don't think this would come as a surprise to many people. Resources were very limited and depended on NGOs being able to access the camps. Women would often give their child their rations, and the water was not clean, leading to widespread disease. The structural composition of refugee camps were also very problematic. There were few doors, and multiple families would share one shelter. They would bathe outside, and all of these factors made women and children very vulnerable to assault, and often sexual assault, in the camps. The women would often have to travel long distances to get water, and many of the routes were poorly lit, making them even more vulnerable. The heavy militarization of the camps compounds this. Many women report that basic resources were leveraged in order for sexual favors, with soldiers often watching them bathe outdoors and following them on routes home. The gender-based violence in these overcrowded camps is widespread and utterly grotesque. The female body became a site of violence, targeting both the individual woman as well as the community's values as a whole, which often saw the female body as the traditional home of purity and sanctum. Yet one area I feel does not get enough recognition, reflecting on the suffering of Sri Lankan refugees, is the human need to be understood and to understand, to connect and to contribute. This desire is palpable with Tamil women and children. Refugee camps attack the very norms, values, and social infrastructure of community. Such social and cultural disintegration has grave impacts on the women and children. Tamil women particularly are historically understood as the bearers of culture, and their loss of agency in maintaining the home threatens their very value in society. As male and female refugees are often split up when entering a camp, it is rare that families are able to stay together. Women and children feel very remote from their extended family and support networks. Their sense of identity as a contributing member of a larger community is grossly undermined. Something that really stuck out to me when researching for this article, and something I'd really like to emphasise, is that despite all the trauma, all the repression, all the psychological damage, Tamil women and children routinely found ways to be creative and to exercise agency. They are not passive victims of oppression, they are human actors. They are human actors who continue to fight for their human need to contribute, to participate, and to be part of a community. Often restricted to an informal basis, they would find ways to provide support links and to progress to justice. One of my favourite cases comes from India, where there was a children parliament in every single refugee camp there. Children cared, and they wanted a better reality, they wanted a better future, and thus they reached out to try and get every child to overcome the adversity they felt in health, education, and many more areas. Nearly drawing to a close in this podcast, it is also important to broaden our scope for a minute. In looking ahead, after decades of violence, destruction, and displacement, it is remarkable how active women were in their efforts to restore hope to their community. Whilst denied many formal roles in the transitional justice process, they were key to the agenda-setting activism, and this should not be overlooked when we recount the story of post-conflict recovery. Under pressure from the UN and Western governments to investigate alleged war crimes, the government set up a Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission in May 2010 and established the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into Complaints of Abductions and Disappearances in August 2013. Many women gave evidence to both commissions, and thus played a fundamental role in the journey to healing. Whilst they didn't have the formal positions to give evidence, often on record, they found ways to work around this, as they knew that the reality they faced now was not what they were happy with, and that they could use their power in informal ways to influence the trajectory of the road to justice. In reflecting on the strength of Tamil women and children in post-conflict Sri Lanka, we uncover profound resilience amid unimaginable hardship. Their stories of survival, agency, and community rebuilding are essential to understanding the complexities of Sri Lanka's post-war reality. Highlighting these narratives individually allows us to grasp the unique struggles and triumphs shaped their experiences. Importantly, recognizing the human need for connection and belonging reminds us that recovery is not only about rebuilding structures, but also about healing social fabric. It is through these connections that communities can move beyond survival, finding dignity, purpose, and hope in the face of adversity. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned a bit about the strengths and the courage of the Tamil women and children in post-conflict Sri Lanka. Thank you.